Welcome to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are a user-supported website. What does that mean to you? We are not funded by the corporate machine. We will always strive to give you the truth, always give you an opportunity to respond, rebut, contribute. I'd like to ask you all to visit our homepage, see all the things that are there. Your donations not only fund the radio station, but they keep alive the website, which supplies you with archives, a forum, a great library where you can download documents. There's a survival store. You can learn how to build a tribe, learn how to home camp, how to build a bug-out bag. There's a survivor blog. There are links to weather, news, space information, government documents, the seismic activity that's going on in the globe, air and water information, news about our Earth in general, whether it be the magnetosphere or the radiation, links all over the place, all over the world, HARP information, T-shirts and stuff. The swag store is a wonderful place just to get a little memento. Make sure that you're with us in the chat rooms as well, and you have your choice of Java or Flash chat. And be sure to check out the Crow's Nest, where our financial advisor, the Crow, keeps you updated on any financial news that may affect your finances today. Thank you, and make sure you're with us for all the live shows. Check the schedule. There is a link for that as well on the left-hand side of the homepage. And we exist today only because you have done one of the following things: donated via the PayPal button, mailed a check directly to the station. Maybe you visited the swag and bought a cup or a keychain. Maybe you've told a friend. Maybe you've shared us on your social network. Maybe you've taken part in our Twitter coaching program. Whatever you've done, we thank you, and we ask you to continue to do it. Whatever you may donate today will help keep your voice alive tomorrow.
All right, and we're live. Mary, are you with us?
Yes, Tim. Good afternoon from Australia.
Great, Mary. Very good, very good. All right, let me just introduce the show. Welcome to Phenomenal E.T.s. I'm your host, Tim Dulger. My guest this evening is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounter Rescue Network, Mary Rodwell. ACERN is a resource and support network for those who have close encounter experiences. ACERN offers professional counseling support, hypnotherapy, and informative to individuals and their families who have had extraordinary paranormal experiences, particularly specializing in abduction, contact experiences. Mary is recognized internationally as one of Australia's leading researchers in the UFO and contact phenomena. She has lectured in the USA, Canada, New Zealand, and UK. She is a former nurse, midwife, and health educator. Mary was also a professional counselor for National Health Services UK. Since 1994, Mary has been in private practice as a professional counselor, hypnotherapist, metaphysical teacher, researcher, author, and international speaker. She's also produced and directed 2 award-winning documentaries, Expressions of Extraterrestrial Contact, a Visual Blueprint, Expressions of Extraterrestrial Contact, a Communication and Healing Blueprint, also author of Awakening, How Extraterrestrial Contact Can Transform Your Life. Mary, it's good to have you. What a great introduction for yourself.
Thank you very much, Tim, and it's wonderful to be here.
Oh, it's very, very happy that you've been able to make it with us last minute. I know we got a hold of each other a few days ago. I had written you, but the message only got to you a few days, so I greatly appreciate you coming on last minute with us. So what's on the plate? What's on your mind? Introduce yourself to our folks more than what I have said already in our introduction. You are the founder of ACERN.
Yes, I think you've done my profile very beautifully. Thank you, Tim. What I'd really like to say is, more than anything, is that I discovered right from virtually the word go that this is an experience that is so much more common to people than people realize. That, you know, we talk about 5% of the people having UFO ET encounters. It's probably a lot higher than that. It's just that people don't always know what they're experiencing. So we're talking about, 1,900 cases that I've helped so far, but that is very much the tip of the iceberg. And this is why I do interviews like this, because there are a lot of people out there that don't realize what they're experiencing is, in fact, some form of contact.
Okay, great. It says here a bit of history. In 1996, a group of Western Australian UFO researchers formed a support group for those people who have had encounter experiences. When many heard about this group, yourself contacted them as well. You also wanted to form a support group for the growing number of clients. You were also seen in your own counseling practice. In December 1996, you met one of the facilitators of the group, Elizabeth Robinson. Would you like to speak on her a little?
Elizabeth Robinson is a beautiful lady, social worker, who found that initially her experiences really confronted her, because here is a social worker having experiences where she thought, I'm going crazy, because this is what normally psychology will say when you start to feel you're having encounters with strange beings. And interestingly, she had an experience where she saw 3 strange beings in her lounge room and thought, yes, I've definitely lost the plot. And someone knocked on the door who came to see her, and she opened the door, and as the lady came in, she said, do you realize you've got 3 strange beings in your lounge room? So here was confirmation. Not only was she seeing these beings, but so was someone else. And this started her on a huge journey of discovery, where not only herself, but I have had clients who are lawyers, doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, even politicians and ministers who've come to me and said, look, this is my experience. And, either I'm crazy or this is real. And this is what I'm getting right across the board from small children. I've had literally young children tell their parents that they experienced going on spacecraft and that they learned things on spacecraft, and whole families are experiencing this. So, as far as I'm concerned now, there's no question that this is a reality for people. The big problem is, as others researchers know, is getting acceptance of it as a reality in the general public psyche.
Exactly. Very, very good point. And even out here in Canada is the same deal. There's a lot of underground platforms for it, but it's not touched upon in the mainstream media so much. So it's like support groups like each other that get it done. So I greatly appreciate that you doing what you do for us and from ACERN. If we are contacting extraterrestrial life, what is the purpose of these contacts? And is there a universal message from these higher level beings?
Certainly, and what I can say from all of those that feel they've had some form of encounter, and this is even young children. I've got a young 8-year-old boy at the moment living locally, and I asked him, certain things about his experience, and he said that he can understand animals, he knows how they feel, and I said, why? What do you think this is all about? He said, I'm here to help animals and people. But what I get from a lot of those that have encounters, that they feel like they've got some mission, they've got something to do here, and that a lot of them feel that their real family is not the human family, but more their extraterrestrial family, and they are here with something to do. And the message seems to be on the craft. They're shown and educated things about the planet, what they need to do for looking after the planet in a way that's healthy. They're told that we can't continue to do this to the planet. And many of them are aware that at the moment we are in a place of crisis, and we as a species have to wake up to the reality. Not only are we not alone, but we've got to start becoming aware of the multidimensional nature of who we are, and that is to accept that there's a non-physical reality. And in that non-physical reality, we're interacting with many different intelligences. And some of them have particularly decided to assist this planet because we are, in many cases, genetically related to them. And they want to assist us to become more aware, to wake up to who we really are and take care of this planet, and to really start to realize how connected we all are as a species to not only each other, but to those intelligences in the cosmos.
Very well put. Mary. Do you believe we as humanity are ready for a mass ET contact?
I think certainly there's a percentage of us that are aware and ready, and this is highlighted by the numbers of people that come to me and tell me that they can't wait for this to be accepted as a reality, because so many of them have been really frightened that they're going crazy, really frightened about the fact that their reality isn't acknowledged, so to them they feel very isolated and alone. And I think that, you know, with the young children coming in, there's a huge acceptance of extraterrestrial reality. They say that at least 78% of the populace or the public now accepts there must be intelligent life out there. And I think that what it really is now is about them accepting it's not just out there, that it's actually here. And we are all part of these species, and that we're, in fact, many of us, I believe we're all hybrids of these species, and that we have been seeded here. And this is what, you know, I'm being told by those who have encounters. Even this little 8-year-old told me that very fact as well, that he knows that he is connected to these other species, and he talks about his connections to what he calls the manta beings and the lion beings, and he said, they're part of my family. Now, this is an 8-year-old child telling me this. So we are getting small children knowing about, you know, this aspect of their reality. And the reason why people have to know it's real now is that when I asked this little boy, what was he most scared of? And he said, I'm scared that I'm going crazy. Because, of course, it's not still accepted that, you know, that we are actually already encountering and participating with these intelligences, not just physically on this planet, but many people are going up on the craft, either physically or astrally, and being taught on the craft. So the longer we delay in letting people know this is okay and it's real, the longer we're going to have people thinking they're going crazy, or at least being medicated
like
or
isolated
in terms of their personal reality.
Absolutely true, and I can't wait to be beamed up, to be honest with you. I'm not tired of this world, but I'm definitely in for something else, and I definitely have to agree with you. We've got a wonderful chat room here at freedomslips.com, Mary, and I post the question. If anyone has any questions for you, I'll copy and paste them. So if you'd like, we can take one of those questions. Are you familiar with the movie The Fourth Kind?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so it says, Mary, are you familiar with Nome, Alaska, how FBI has been there over 4,000 times? What is your take on what's going on in Nome?
Look, my understanding of that is that a lot of that has been edited or changed to create a huge fear. It certainly doesn't reflect any of the encounters that my clients have experienced. And remember, I'm looking for patterns all the time with, 1,800 plus of those that have had either abduction, as they call them, even though they don't always understand more of their connection to these beings, to encounters. That has certainly, they've used certain parts of the patterns of the encounter, but some of that I think has been certainly changed and edited. And my feeling is that it's part of a program, which I do know is a covert program, and other researchers will say this as well, of instilling fear amongst those that have encounters, to believe that they are in fact under threat. And this has been part of an undercover covert program for the last 60 or 70 years. And for any of those researchers that know this, that part of the reason for it is to keep people quiet, to stop them talking about this. I remember one lady recently seeing that particular film, and she told me she went outside and threw up because it was so terrifying. And this is part of this program that is trying to shut us down, to stop us realizing, about our greater reality and our connection to these intelligences is okay, that it's part of who we are.
Okay, very well. So that would lead into your opinions on a false flag alien invasion, because I do believe that that's their attempt, be it Blue Beam or these movies that indoctrinate the fear inside you. Yeah. I think you're on point there. What do you think about that?
I'm absolutely in concurrence with that. Remember that for me, when I first had people come to me, I didn't really know very much about this. I'd read the book synchronistically, if you like, with Dr. John Mack's book, Professor of Psychiatry at Harvard University, who wrote the book Abduction and said this is real. And that was really helpful when I met my first client. But what I realized too was, how is it then that, this isn't out in the public forum and that we aren't researching this properly through all the different research methods that we should? And then you go into the cover-up. You go in and understand. I've met, intelligence whistleblowers from, American intelligence and elsewhere. I've met people in the military. I've met, the ex-Defence Minister of Canada, the Honourable Paul Hellyer, who also has written a whole chapter in his book about the UFO cover-up. We know that President Carter saw UFOs. We know that with a lot of the UFO documents that governments have covered up, the Ministry of Defence in the UK has released documents where even Churchill was aware of the UFOs and what have you. So finally, some governments, including Mexico, Brazil, France, for example, there's about 10 or 11 countries now that have, let us see some of the UFO files that they have. I've seen the UFO files here in Canberra in Australia. And there is no doubt that the military is fully informed on this reality. And the trouble is, though, there are many reasons why it's been kept quiet from the public. And there's a whole myriad of very good reasons, which, we could go into if there's time.
Very true. Yeah, we can go into everything. Let's just indulge ourselves. That's why they call me the Dulger. The chat room here is definitely piling up with the questions, so I greatly appreciate all our chatters and listeners joining us at freedomslips.com. This is Revolution Radio, the Phenomenal E.T.s show with guest Mary Rodwell of ACERN, and you can find Mary at acern.com.au. Is that correct, right? ACERN.com.
That's correct. Thank you.
ACERN, which stands for Australian Close Encounter Research Network, acern.com.au. Been in the business for 15 years. What got you on your path? What started you on this path 15 years ago?
Well, actually, it was a gentleman that came to see me, and he said he'd heard that I was open-minded. He said there were support groups for everything but this. For this, people just thought you were a loony. And he proceeded to tell me his whole family were having these experiences, being taken through walls, finding themselves on spacecraft. He would wake up with marks on his body, shaved areas on his leg, strange finger marks, rashes. There were but not only himself, but his partner and the two children. So it was really scary. There were a lot of other paranormal things going on, strange knocking, noises. And a lot of the relatives wouldn't come to the house because they thought it was haunted. And as I started to talk with this gentleman, he was mentioning many of the things that I'd read about in Dr. Mack's book, and I'd also read the book Communion by Whitley Strieber. So I had enough understanding to realize that for some people this was a reality. He was articulate, intelligent. There was no question in my mind that this man had any psychological illness. He was far too balanced. And, as a clinician, you can soon understand when somebody is having some other psychological problem. So there was no question in my mind that this was a reality for him. I even took it to advanced counselling that I was doing at the time, to supervision, and a whole range of people. I mentioned him as a case study, and what was fascinating to me was, instead of telling me that they thought this gentleman was crazy, they all started to share their own paranormal and strange experiences. So in other words, it sort of opened the door to them saying, look, this is what I've experienced. There were psychologists there were social workers, there were uniting minister. Not one of them said to me they thought the guy was crazy. And so it was really fascinating that what it seemed to do was to allow people the freedom to start sharing things that they wouldn't normally share. But it certainly convinced me when literally a week later, I had another client come to me who told me about her experiences, and I started to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't so unusual after all. Maybe, there's more going on here. And that's when I met Elizabeth Robinson. I was part of a paranormal research group, and from that, the support group, and on it went. And as I say, the rest is history, really. I realized that, I had to, if nobody else would, at least offer a support that it seemed nowhere else, nobody had anywhere else to go.
Very true. Just like James Gilliland here in the United States, I don't think there's too many of you out there that hold the support and acknowledge that, yes, we are not alone, and this is what we understand from it. So I greatly appreciate you doing the work you do. In your book, Awakening, contains information on the many issues relating to contact, transformative aspects of contact experiences, such as heightened awareness of other realms, psychic and healing abilities, the manifestation of strange scripts, complex artwork, symbols and strange language. This book explores how the children with contact manifest many of the multidimensional and extraordinary abilities called new human or star children, sometimes called indigos. Can you tell us a little bit about these star children, if you would like?
Yes, Tim, the thing that I've discovered with many of the children whose parents have had contact, because we know now that it's intergenerational, that it goes through genetic lines.
Okay.
A lot of these children manifest extraordinary abilities, a real heightened sense of the non-physical world. Like, this young boy that I'm assisting at the moment, he told me he can see energy fields, and he described my energy field and his parents and his own energy field. He even said, that he knows by the energy field of his schoolmates which ones he can be friends with and the ones that he couldn't be friends with. There's a sense through the energy field. He told me that, he remembers going up on the spacecraft with some of his school friends, and he said they're sort of like in pods switched off. And I said, and what happens? And he said, well, it's usually because we're having, a medical exam. And I said, how often does this happen? He says, once a year. And then he went in to describe that on the spaceship he learns about mathematics. And I sort of said, well, what kind of mathematics? He said, not human mathematics. He said it's different. It's, as he explained, even about, the history. He's taught a different kind of history on the craft, for example. And he said that, I said to him, do you know why this is happening? He said, yes. And he said, I'm here to help. And I said, to help who? He said, the animals and the people, because he told me that he can understand and feel what animals feel, for example. So this is a child that his parents hadn't even realized that he was having these experiences until, they were having them. And then realizing that for them this was very, very confronting, and brought their son because he was behaving really strangely. And then realizing when he started to talk that this had been happening for him too. And he quite honestly said something really strange. He said, I know that part of me is part mantis being, he said, and part lion being, and James will relate to this. He knows about his genetics, and they're not all human. And I've met many, many clients tell me that they know they're part human, but maybe part of other species or intelligences. But these children seem to have a knowledge that they're fully aware of, fully conscious of, and most of the time they won't talk about it because they obviously realize that if they do, that there's going to be a problem. And this is what this little 8-year-old said to me. I said to him, what do you fear the most? And he said that I'm going crazy. Now, this is an 8-year-old boy thinking he's going crazy. Now, this is heartbreaking, isn't it? That some small child, because of his experiences, knows they don't belong in terms of what we understand and accept as reality. And yet here he is questioning his sanity at 8 because we still haven't the openness that needed for these children to understand that it's real. And thank goodness many of the parents who are having encounters are now opening up to the fact their children are having them too, and then can start to listen and honor their experiences.
Is this Boriska you're speaking about?
No, this is a young man very local to where I'm living at the moment. The whole family's having encounters.
Okay.
He's aware of their genetic origins as well. And what's fascinating for me, Tim, particularly, is his experiences with what we call the manta beings, which are like insect-like looking beings who are very ancient, very wise, and certainly a high level of consciousness. Some of the specific things he told me match with a gentleman I'm writing the foreword for in England, Simon Parks, who's doing his own story, and he talks about his manta mother, and he feels more connected to her than his human mother, and he's now 51. And some of his experiences echo very much what this little boy is saying, and they've never met, and yet they're talking about certain specific details that only those that have encounters will understand, including a sound that these manta beings make, which this little boy started to make to me. And I said, and what is that sound? And he said, that's the sound the manta makes when they're happy. And I actually got confirmation this is exactly the sound that Simon mentioned when these manta beings are very happy with you, because they when they connect with you, one of the things they do is hold apparently the human child up above their heads and make this kind of chirping or trilling sound, which is really unique. And there was this little boy saying exactly the same thing. He's a world away and he's 8 years old, and he's actually describing exactly the same thing as Simon Parks has mentioned to me. A very, very specific detail that nobody knows about. What I'm saying is there is the confirmation of a reality and real patterns that are very, very specific, and there is no way anyone could know these things. This is my point. You know, these are the patterns that I'm seeing where they're very specific. And, you know, when you're getting children coming out with talking about going through walls and learning more on the ships than they learn at school. This is a 5-year-old talking to his mother. Wow. Telepathic abilities, where the mother said to me, it's very confronting when I'm thinking, look, you know, I'll give my little 5-year-old baked beans for lunch. And he comes out before I say anything and says, yes, Mum, baked beans will be fine. Now, she said, you know, this is pretty scary and pretty confronting. But these are some of the abilities these children have. This little boy, as many others have told me, even knows what their teachers are thinking. And I remember one 13-year-old telling me that she was quite confronted because what her teacher was thinking and what she was saying was two different things, and what her teacher was thinking sometimes wasn't very nice.
Wow.
Now, this is pretty confronting stuff.
It is. No doubt. Very intriguing. We do have questions coming in, and I'm trying to gather them for you. So if you'd like to start with those, they've been piling up. What are your experiences with those who have worked with, who you have worked with regarding the current awakening? Do you find more of those you have had contact experiences who have had contact experiences are starting to wake up much more so than the mainstream public?
Absolutely, and this is really accelerating at an amazing rate. People who a few years ago said, oh, I used to have some strange things happen, but I never really, wanted to go into it. But all of a sudden it feels like I'm being pushed into coming out with this. And that includes people telling their stories and writing about their stories now, where they said a few years ago it just didn't feel right, and almost like they're impelled to start talking about this, start to write about it. And all of them seem to come out with a similar kind of message, which is it's time for humanity to wake up. It's about a shift in consciousness. It's about us realizing that we're multidimensional in nature, and that we've got to start, waking up to that greater reality, and that it is, this big shift that we are now in. It's actually happening. We're part of it as it is, accelerating now. And I think this is only going to continue. And it can be very, very confronting for a lot of people, because suddenly everything they've ever believed in no longer seems to matter. It's like there's, this energy about focusing on where we are as a species, where we're going, and these huge shifts and changes that they sense are coming, even though they don't always know what form they're going to take.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and also going back to the Star Children here, to touch on the evidence you have found to support what you believe to be a possible genetic engineering program for upgrading Homo sapiens.
It's really interesting, because one of the things that I mention is that we have 223 genomes in our DNA that were a sideways insertion of genetic material, all to do with higher psychological functioning. They didn't come up the invertebrate phase of our evolution. Nobody can explain how they got there. And that in itself is the clue. Dr. Francis Crick, everyone will know, is co-founder of the DNA molecule. In his book, Life Itself, said that the seeds of life came in a spaceship. This has been part of our, I think, mainstream in some senses, is how is it that, we went from Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon man into Homo sapiens sapiens. There's a missing link nobody can explain unless you look at, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. All through history, we've got indigenous peoples telling us the star beings came down. The Dogon tribe talk about the Namo, that it genetically engineered them. We've got this happening in North American Indians, the Hopi Indians, and many other North American cultures talk about the star beings. We hear about in Mexico and South America, Quetzalcoatl, who was a feathered serpent, taught them laws and taught them how to live. Here in Australia, the Aborigines talk about the Wandjina, the star beings that come down and interact and taught them things. They still have experiences. Many of the Aborigines I've spoken to mention about their own encounters, for example. And there's always one common link with all of them is about some of it is to do with DNA. Even the small children talk about this. A 13-year-old in Canada particularly mentioned an experience with his brother that they acted like scientists and it was to do with our DNA. At 13, this is a very, very complex thing for him to say. But also the star children seem to know that their genetic origins aren't all human. And it seems to be that they're looking for certain programs or certain genetic patterns that offer certain skills. And that's why I think that we are getting more of what we call the ADHDs, autism and Asperger's, for example. What's interesting about all those particular, we call them dysfunctions. My suspicion is that, in fact, they may be new programs and they understand reality in a different way. Neil Gold, who is part of the UFO groups in Hong Kong, has written his book, Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind, because he's ADHD. And he has said that he always felt he saw and experienced reality differently. And I'm suspecting that actually there's a possibility that some of these, what we call dysfunctions, may actually be different programs where, the autistic person also sees beings, has encounters. So does Asperger's. But they have different qualities and understand reality differently. And maybe these are all new programs that are going to be part of what we call the mix of the star kids, indigos, crystal children, children of light. They're called many, many names. We know that their metaphysicians have known about these different kinds of children coming out onto the planet now. I believe they have different roles to play, and I believe it's a very hopeful thing for us as humanity because, for all of those that talk about the disasters and potential catastrophes, I don't believe these children would be incarnated now if it was for a waste of time. And I've always said that I think they've come to bring their skills to assist with this shift.
Very well. Thank you, Mary Rodwell of ACERN.com.au. Just want to let our listeners know freedomslips.com is the website. Revolution Radio is what you're listening to. This is the Phenomenal E.T.s show here on Thursday nights. Next week starting at 10 p.m. We started at 10:30 this evening, but back to a new time again, 10 p.m. next week. Come and join us in our chat room. We've got a wonderful chat room. A bunch of people sharing some great information, having fun together here, and that's at freedomslips.com, so come and join us here. I have Mary Rodwell here from ACERN.com.au, just asking her experiences with, you call them clients, but they're not paying you. It's more or less the people that you're working with. You are getting them to the basics of understanding what they're experiencing with these contacts. Alien contacts and what have you, abductions and of that realm. So that's what we're here talking about. Greatly appreciate you coming on here with us. I've got a whole bunch of notes here. I'm all over the place. So we've got questions here, and I'm going to post them. I just let me get to you. Sorry, I've definitely had more than I bargained for with having you on, Mary. You're very well known in the UFO realm, and I think we can even go for more than 2 hours and even more than that because there's a lot of information to cover. So we will just get right back into it because we could be here for days. Mary, how can we even tell in this day and age what a legit UFO is? And I have this question myself. And can it be a military object?
I think you're well enough as a researcher, and any researcher knows that the covert governments and military have reverse engineered a lot of the craft, and we do have some of this exotic technology, which a lot of people like, some of the triangular craft, for example, are very likely human orchestrated vehicles without doubt. So it is very hard sometimes to know what's what. But there are some craft that I think without question not human orchestrated. Some of the light ships that Carlos Diaz has seen and other people have seen, these kinds of ships, as far as I know, they haven't got any of those types of ships yet, but certainly they've got some of the craft that are seen in the skies, and I think some of that is deliberately misplaced and thought of as being extraterrestrial. But the interesting is, with those that see these craft, many of those that have seen them actually get a sense when it's extraterrestrial, when it's not and not military. There is a different kind of energy about it, a sense of consciousness, a sense of connection. Because interestingly, when people do see a real extraterrestrial or interdimensional kind of craft, there's often an interaction, even if it's not so conscious. It may be they just feel different afterwards. There may be what's known as a download if someone is involved in this encounters with these intelligences. So they will feel differently afterwards, for example. So that's sometimes the way that they can tell whether or not it's human exotic technology or whether or not it's a real extraterrestrial or interdimensional craft.
Very well. Want to know how can you tell the difference between exotic Earth-based technology and the extraterrestrial craft? Yeah, that is often a sense that people will get, that it's different. I mean, we do know that there's a lot of disinformation put out there, and there's certainly an agenda to make us believe certain of the craft are in fact extraterrestrial. But unfortunately, we can't always tell normally which one it will be. But certainly with the light ships, like as I say, Carlos Diaz light ships and those kinds of ones, as far as I know, the military haven't got that kind of technology, because those ones are conscious and work with the consciousness of those on board, and are literally, some of them are energetic ships or interdimensional ships, and those can't, as far as I know, and I'm not as informed as some, I don't know whether as yet our military has that kind of technology. Exactly. Well, you had answered my question earlier, or at least touched upon it. My personal question, which I wanted to leave for the end because it had to do with myself. But when I do, and I have witnessed unidentified flying objects with the wife several times, hundreds of times to be in fact. Yet there's times when you don't feel anything, and there's times when you feel a whole bunch of energy just overwhelm your body. Is that their way of letting us know that they're real and that they are of higher dimensional beings, when you get that feeling that you spoke about?
Absolutely. And that's when I think you get a real sense. Some people are almost called outside. They'll say that, suddenly I felt I needed to go outside, and there it was. And I'd get this energy buzz through me, and I would just know. And it was like they were saying hi, and sometimes they would feel some kind of download and feel different. And this is when I think you really know that you're having an interaction, and it is a real, extraterrestrial or interdimensional. I mean, we keep saying they're all extraterrestrial. They're not. There are interdimensional beings. I believe there's transcendental beings. And, there is some suggestion now that we are also being visited from our future, and that's to do with something that Linda Morton Howe is talking about with the Rendlesham Forest incident, for example, where Penniston himself, one of the military airmen, went and saw this exotic craft, and when he touched the symbols on it, he got a download of binary code, which he couldn't forget until he'd actually written it all down, 16 pages of it. And what was encapsulated in that was that these were us from the future. And they'd come back because of certain needs that they had, including to do with our genetics. So, we have to be really careful about how we try and put things into boxes, because actually the boxes may be far broader and more multidimensional in nature than we realize.
Very well, Mary. Thanks a lot for that. Do you know about the research of Dr. Carla Turner?
Yes, I do.
Can you speak about that, please?
I very much found her research extremely useful and valuable, and I do know that she was perhaps less convinced of a positive agenda with some of these intelligences, and I do understand why. We've come a long way in the last 20 years in terms of our understanding of what was termed abduction. And for many people, even those that may use that term on their books, as I know Simon is, he's never felt like he was abducted. He and many others that come to me, even though they've been very fearful and have felt, and many of them have felt like they have no choice. Often what I've discovered is when they go into hypnosis, and we've looked at, and I've asked them that very question when they've gone into that deep state. And I've asked them, have you on any level consented to this encounter? And most times they will say yes, but it was before I came here. So they're acknowledging that as a soul, or before they actually incarnated in human, they had an agreement, and often it's agreement with the star visitors that they're interacting with. And this takes it to a whole new level, whether or not people want to believe that or not. I ask them whether or not this resonates with you, resonates with them, and they will say, yes, it does, even though it's very confronting. So, what is really important here is to realize that when someone has an encounter, they may not fully know exactly everything that went on. And what we discover when we go into hypnosis and regression, that what they understood happened from a conscious, sometimes fearful perspective, is not necessarily everything that happened. And there's a great deal more information about their encounter once they have the full story. And for many, it's life-changing, because they suddenly will realize that maybe they're not a victim after all, that there's something else far bigger for them in terms of understanding their life story and their life experience than they ever believed. And that understanding will change everything they believe about their encounters. And they will often see it from a completely different perspective, which it changes from them feeling like a victim, in fact, to more like a co-participant of their encounters.
Okay, Mary, thank you very much for that. More questions from our chat room here, and I'm trying to understand a few of them, but we'll go in order, no doubt. Charles Hickman and Parker from Pascagoula, I think it's Missouri. Are you familiar with that situation? That particular?
No, it rings a bell, but that's all.
Okay, great. I'll post it here in our chat room here in Skype, and I'll also post it here in our chat room at freedomslips.com. And this came from us, from Crow, and it just has to deal with the strain case of a 19-year-old Calvin Parker and 42-year-old Charles Hickson actually began a day before their famous encounter on October 10th, 1973. 15 different people, including 2 policemen, reported seeing a large silver UFO slowly fly over a housing project in the St. Tammany Parish, New Orleans, Louisiana. And I believe that they were abducted. I would have to read further on, but my friend Crow here in our chat room can confirm what the story was all about. I didn't get a chance to look at this. He just threw it at me last minute. Says, ask Mary if she knows it. She knows her stuff. Okay, great. So you got that link. Great. Okay, so she does not know. Just let me get that next question up for you. Ask her if she knows about the recent abductions in BC, the 2 women who were gone for about 30 to 40 minutes, and one had scars. I'm
not familiar with that particular case, although I did go to Vancouver about 5 years ago and spoke for a UFO BC. I think it was in 2005. I think there's certainly a lot of activity in that part of the world. And, it's everywhere, and to me, these are, it's like every 2 to 6 minutes somebody sees a UFO now around the globe. It's so common. We're talking not just about hundreds and thousands here. We're talking about millions of people that are having various forms of encounter around the globe. And, some people are brave enough to come out and talk about it. And it's classic every time. They will have missing time. They will find that it will come back. There'll be marks on their body. Some of them glow with black ultraviolet light, for example. There's 1, 2, or 3 people involved in an encounter, and they will always feel different. They'll know something's happened. And it's usually, sometimes they can remember little flashbacks of it. Other times they won't remember absolutely, other than the fact there's been missing time. And I get many come to me because of the missing time part of their experience. They've gone to see maybe Uncle Joe, and they know it should take half an hour, and they're 3 hours late, and they don't know why, but they will tell me maybe they saw some strange lights. And it's standard that, when we go in, we discover they've been taken up on a craft. There's often been medical procedures done, sometimes healing procedures done. They are often shown things on a big screen, sometimes with hundreds of other humans, and they're told what we're doing to the planet, what we shouldn't be doing to the planet. Some go and the children talk about learning certain mathematics, physics, and one of the interesting things they describe is like there'll be a group of humans, maybe hybrids as well, sitting together as children, and they will be working with these mathematics, if you like, in holograms in front of them. They will all be working with their mind to create these holograms, which they are learning complex mathematics. And it's information that they, will bring back with them. And I've had many people who've said, look, I've known things. I'm not in the least interested in physics, but I actually know a lot about physics, and I don't know how I know. I only know that I know. And so there's an educational program going on, which is to do with cosmology. People are taken to see black holes. They're shown their planets of origin, where they feel a deep emotional connection. They are often told about their genetics with other beings on the craft, such as maybe the Greys, or it could be the Manta, or it could be, lion and Manta and Grey and human. So they're actually said, meet some of your genetic family. It's very confronting, but on some deep level, these people say this resonates, even though it confronts everything that I've ever believed in. So, what you're telling me and what, these encounters are just a real small part of what is a huge program of upgrading and educating humanity.
All right. Project Sigma, established in 1954, established that there were malevolent, benevolent, and neutral aliens. Do you believe that this still exists today, 50 years later?
Look, it's really hard from our limited research to make any categoric statements about anything other than I am certain there are intelligences out there that are more self-serving than others. I don't know enough to be categoric or make a mandate about anything, and I don't think anybody has enough information to say that. But there does seem to be many different agendas. But what I am seeing with most of those that come to me, that their interactions, once they understand them, have been, for them, transformative and been very loving. That doesn't mean to say there haven't been those that have been very deeply traumatized, and I acknowledge very much that they will feel very much these beings are not nice. Sometimes that's because they don't understand the full range of their encounters. Some may very well be that they have had interactions with those intelligences that perhaps are a lot more self-serving. I can't say for certain about, how many are out there that are, if you like, assisting humanity to evolve and how many are not. Only recently I was talking to some in northern Queensland, and what I heard from one gentleman was that there were 3 species of reptilians. 2 of them are highly evolved, and one of them has a negative agenda. So that's 1 out of 3 of the reptilian species in terms of his understanding. Another lady said to me that out of the species of grey, there's at least 165 species of grey. So we can't again say, my experience for this particular being means they're all like this, because we really actually don't know. And I think we've just got little bits of information until, as a species, we start to open up to the full extent of this reality and do the correct research with all the people that are having encounters. We can then start to get a sense of what's really going on. Nobody has the mandate, and that's the bottom line, and I certainly haven't. I can only go with those that come to me and help them understand their particular experience in whatever way they choose to understand it, and assist them at least with the fact that someone's there who will listen and who will give them the chance to explore it in a way that makes sense to them.
Great. Thanks for that, Mary. Going back to Carla Turner's, do you know about her sudden death?
Yes, I do, and I will say something really interesting to you. What I found a few years later with two of those that contacted me was that her very image was seen on the craft in human form, which was exactly her, and they'd come across it in a UFO magazine and couldn't believe they'd actually seen her after her death on the craft. The exact image of her, which is really quite strange. But what it has highlighted to me something else that is going to perhaps confront a number of people, is that it seems that some of these intelligences are working at the level of soul. And what I mean by that is that they're not only working in the physical realm, but the non-physical realm. And one of the most fascinating stories was a 15-year-old child that I worked with, or young man, should I say, I worked with in England. And what was fascinating in his encounter was he was in his back garden, this craft landed, the grey beings came out who he felt very comfortable with. But he said, and there's my grandmother and grandfather and my uncle there too. And I said, well, what do they look like? He said, they're balls of light. And I said, so how do you know that they're your family? He says, I just know. And I said, well, why are they there? And he said, they're here so I won't be frightened. But what was fascinating, not only did he recognize the balls of light for who they were, which is his grandparents that had passed away, he described not only did the E.T.s go back on the craft, but so did the balls of light. So they followed the E.T.s back into the craft. And I have had a number of people now mention to me that they've interacted with soul or balls of light that have the essence of people that they've known actually on the spacecraft. And one of the recent ones is actually this little boy who described that he actually could change form into another form. And I said, well, how did it happen when you're, in your human self? And he described part of him evaporating, as he called it almost like steam, and going into this other form. Now, this is an 8-year-old, doesn't know anything about how we understand, the ability of the soul, or astral form or out-of-body information. And that was how he described it, that he could change form on the craft and go into another form. Now, this challenges everything that we understand in terms of the nature of soul, if we take on board what these children are telling us and others that I have come across in recent years.
Very well. Thank you for that. More questions. They just keep piling up. Ask Mary if they are looking for certain DNA. Does that mean she feels that they are helping with our own evolution for the future?
It's a very good question. And despite the way it confronts us and despite the fear that all of this may endanger, at the end of the day, what I'm seeing is people change after their encounters. And I call it transformative because it's like it's a catalyst to get us to start exploring things in a new way. There was an interesting thesis done by Simon Harvey Wilson in 2000 in Western Australia, and ACERN assisted him with some of my clients. And what he was exploring was the comparisons between shamanism and abductions. Fascinatingly, he found enormous parallels. Now, for anyone who knows about being a shaman or going a shaman who wants to explore the other realms has to transcend their fear to become multidimensional in awareness. So they have to face all their fears to operate in a multidimensional world as the shaman does. Interestingly, the abduction scenario is like a modern form of shamanic experience because it's exactly the same thing. The person is, if you like, forced or encouraged to transcend their fears so that they can actually become more multidimensional in nature. And the same outcomes are that they become more psychic, more intuitive, often find they have healing abilities, telepathic abilities. They become more precognitive. In other words, they often are aware of future events, for example. So it almost acts like a catalyst for an awakening. And this is the same with near-death experiences. You know, those that have out-of-body experiences or deep grief issues will often find that through that profound experience, they are changed in a way that transforms everything in terms of their reality. And they will say that they will never see things the same, but it is usually a very positive, but also an extremely challenging awakening for some people.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Mary Rodwell. I was just asking our studio here a question about taking a station ID, but I guess we can do it like this. Just want to let our listeners know freedomslips.com is the website. Revolution Radio is what you're listening to. This is the Phenomenal E.T.s Phenomenal E.T.s show that airs Thursdays at 10:30 p.m. We host very many shows here on our station. A wide range starting at 5 p.m. next week. We're going till 4 a.m. So near 12 hours. So we're doing our part to get the message out, to get the word of freedom out to you. Keep it live, keep it truthful, and if you have any opinions about the site, if you have any questions or any statements about news, you're more than welcome to come to our website here and mention that in our chat room here. That's at freedomslips.com. 100% listener supported here at our website. If I can just pull up the main page for you, we've got a host of topics you can keep you busy for days. Archive section of our past shows for a nominal fee. You can get all of our past shows for the past, I think, 6 months, and also comes with 3 CDs of Echo's music, which is the owners of this website's music. You can check that out in our archive section. There's also a library to keep you busy for days, a new revamped schedule, survival documents. We've got a great host of things to keep you busy. Like I said, Astronomy Live, Gamma Burst. You can check it out, the Berkeley Library. We've got it all, government documents here. Freedomslips.com is that website, and then you can enter a chat room via Flash or Java, and then when you get to this chat room, you can choose a wonderful name, letting people get to know you, and to keep you busy more and more, because we're all like-minded, sharing news together and keeping it real here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener supported. You will not hear us pause for commercial breaks to promote government products, to promote the corporate media, and that's not the way we do it. We work as a 100% listener-supported radio station, such as ACERN, such as Mary Rodwell is a nonprofit organization, and this is all going towards building this station and getting the bandwidth paid off. Donations are greatly appreciated. If you can, please click that donate button. Greatly appreciated. If you'd like to stay anonymous, you can always donate by mail. And there's lovely banners here at the top. You can also buy ad space for $50 a month and have your ads promoted weekly to thousands of people that come here in our chat room. Over the week, I'd say we might hit about 1,000 chatters over the week, so definitely gets viewed by a lot of people. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Come and join us. Here is the Phenomenal E.T.s show with host Tim Dulger and guest this week, Mary Rodwell of ACERN.com.au. That's ACERN.com.au. And we will continue on with our questionnaires, and maybe we can bring James in a few moments after we get to more questions. How does that sound, Mary?
That sounds wonderful.
Great. Do all indigos have blue eyes?
I don't think so. It's more their energy field.
Okay. The Indigos, you mean? Okay. Great. Okay, just give me a quick sec here. I'm all over the place. I do apologize. This is it's not my first time doing these interviews here. I just have this overwhelming power, the presence of you. You're just emitting so much energy to me. I'm so overwhelmed. I feel intimidated almost. Great. Thanks a lot, Mary. Do the abductees stay on these ships? Do the abductees stay on the ships? Then, or why can't they see where they are? I guess he was trying to ask about the surroundings, what the surroundings look like on these ships. Are they being taught? Is it in the classroom, in space? What's going on with these abductees in the ships?
Well, there's a whole range of things that they may experience. One of them is actually being taught, and it may be in front of a big screen with hundreds of others in pajamas as the children talk about it, or they may be in small groups with other humans and sometimes with little hybrids and E.T.s where they will work with their consciousness, they will work with their mind in a kind of holographic way, almost like if you could imagine where children would put building bricks one on top of the other in a physical realm. They would do the building bricks in front of them in a holographic way where each child would add the bricks, for example, as a way of showing how to use their mind. There is other technologies they're taught to use and use their consciousness in a way that is speeded up, in a way that we, don't quite fully understand. It's almost like, as one young man told me, with the telepathy, when he goes up on the craft, it's almost like he had to change channels in his head like a radio station to get the right frequency so he can understand what is being told from a telepathic point of view. They're taught, one young boy told me that there's like icons, that when you touch them, they open up almost like a computer screen. And as the icons open up, they then see things in a multidimensional way so that they can see it from all angles. They're taught, some of them are taught literally how to pilot the craft. Even this young boy mentioned to me that he piloted the craft with his mind. It's quite fascinating how it seems like they are being taught how to manage from a consciousness point of view their multidimensional reality and to understand not only our origins and, the real physics of our universe, for example, like one lady who was given information of mathematics from the light beings. She's actually a teacher, and she had downloaded all this huge mathematical information, which she sent to Brian Josephson, who was head of physics at Cambridge University, and he replied to her, "This is mathematics of the future," and he admitted that it was all to do with Planck's constant. She even sent the same information to Adelaide University, to the head of physics there, and got similar information. So what we're getting from them is real tangible. It's verifiable. Some of it they feel is almost like compressed files of information that they can't access yet, almost like we're waiting for a time where we as a species will be assisted to open up to our full potential. And because I'm interested in genetics and because of my background in nursing as well, I'm aware that we only use 3% of our DNA. 97% is switched off. We don't know what it is, and it's often being called trash litter. There is a consensus possibly, and this is my own personal thinking on this, and I've got no idea whether I'm right, but I sort of wonder whether at some point that 97% of so-called trash litter will be switched on in some way, and then we will become like a new aware kind of human, but the new aware kind of human will need new software. And I often wonder whether these complex files or compressed files that people are downloading and talking about may be the new software for the new human computer or biological computer. I don't know if that's the case, but a lot of people seem to think that might be what the purpose of some of this information is, because we talked about the strange scripts that a lot of my clients will actually manifest quite spontaneously, and they will tell me that one line seen multidimensionally would fill a room with cyclopedias of information. So what we're seeing is just one line or one strange dot, if you like, but encoded in that is this compressed file. And what is it for? We're not quite sure yet. But if one of my hypotheses is maybe that's just getting us ready to have the new software for the part of us that when we get woken up fully, so that our consensus reality then will be expanded, and we will need information to deal with it, to manage it, to understand our multidimensional nature.
Thanks for that, Mary. Ask her if there is any way to interview some of these children. On air, I guess.
Well, at the moment, I'm very aware that most parents are quite confronted with what their children are telling them. So mostly these children need to feel really safe before they'll start to tell you things. It's just like, this little young man that I'm supporting at the moment. It took some while for him to feel safe with me, and simply because I actually know what to ask, that he actually told, the first time his parents had ever heard this, that he could see energy fields. He even told me the colours of mine, the colours of his parents. They had no idea up to the point of him bringing him to me that he could see energy fields, for example. So with a lot of them, the parents are obviously very protective, understandably so, and also it has to be in the right environment. In fact, I'm hoping to do some recorded interviews with no way of identifying the children, but to get the children to talk about what they understand and how they understand it, so that you can hear from in their own words, their understanding of their reality. But obviously, most parents would be very protective, and I very much respect that. I think it's really important these children don't get put out there in a public way where they will feel exposed. I think that it's scary enough, even admitting it to one other person, that you're experiencing reality in a different way to most other children.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a correlation between autism and the abductions?
Certainly, those that have had encounters or abductions have told me they may have an autistic child that also seems to be having some form of experiences. So I know that autism doesn't preclude these experiences in the same way those with Asperger's also have told me they've had experiences as well. So it certainly doesn't preclude it. Whether or not I'm right in saying that they are another program, I really don't know. But I do know that the genetics of different families are what the these different beings are working with. And it seems to be that they're looking at certain skills or upgrading. Many of them are aware that even mothers that have had encounters have been aware in some way they've been taken up on craft and been told that the very DNA of this particular child that they were having was very special and that it had been altered or changed in some way. And it is very confronting to know that, but they said, I always knew my child was going to be special. And they were, right from the word go, they seemed more alert, they seemed more aware. Some of these children, the way they know that they're having encounters is the child is no longer found in the cot. They may be found in another place in the room with no possibility of being able to get there themselves, when they're really small children. These are one of the many patterns that the parents know something strange is going on. The child is not put in danger, but it's almost like these intelligences saying, take notice, something's going on, are you ready to find out more? It's almost like they're constantly giving us a shove in the ribs and saying, well, are you going to acknowledge this now? Are you ready for this? Like the people that wake up finding they haven't got their own night clothes on, but somebody else's. It's, they say, oh, well, maybe the E.T.s are making a mistake. I don't believe that's the case at all. I think what the E.T.s are doing is saying, go on, are you going to deny this now? Are you ready to wake up to realizing something's going on? Because, we are very reluctant to accept that we're different or that we have a different reality to someone else, because the normal thing is we want to be the same as everybody else. So it's very hard for us to get to accept maybe we're different. and that we are having different human experiences than other people. So it's like these ETs are constantly giving us little nudges. And I know James will understand this very well. And sometimes they're big nudges, like people finding themselves outside with all the doors locked, with no way of knowing how on earth they got outside. And there's many cases of that happening, even with no clothes on. One guy in England, Steve Jones, who's written a book about his experiences, talks about this, that he found himself outside in the middle of winter with no clothes on, with no way of knowing how he got outside because all the doors were locked, and having to bang on the door to get his wife Annie to let him in. These, I don't believe, are mistakes. I think they're ways of getting us to realize something is going on. And are you ready now to open up to the reality of who you are and your experiences?
Great. Thanks, Mary. We have Joey on the line. Oh, he just left us. Sorry for that. Has anyone contacting these ETs talked to you about the reptilians and specifically about the reptilians?
Absolutely. And many, many people believe they're a mix of reptilian and sometimes lion, reptilian or manta. Interestingly, they have a bad press most of the time. Most people are really scared of them. But that doesn't necessarily mean everyone has had that kind of feeling. I have met a number that have actually had nothing but loving encounters with these beings. And one of them is a researcher called Barbara Lamb, who does a lot with the crop circles, who's a good friend of mine. And she recalls going into her lounge room and seeing this 7-foot, very intimidating initially reptilian, but she felt nothing but love from this being and in fact embraced him before he disappeared. So again, I suppose what I'm saying is we can't put everybody in the same basket and saying these species are good, these species are bad. We don't know enough to say anything about that. All I say to my clients is, what is your feeling with the beings that you're interacting with? What's your sense of them? Because that's more likely to be the truth for you than what you're reading with other people, because sometimes, it's our fear that gets us to judge something. If something looks beautiful, we think it's good. If something looks scary, we think it's bad. We've got to look more at the energetic response we have rather than necessarily the image, because the image can often frighten us because it's different. So we have to be very, very careful about judging the beings. The grey beings have a very bad press a lot of the time. But what I found with some people who've had interactions with the greys have had very loving encounters where they have felt they've had a sense of humour, where they said and emotion and feeling and love that they haven't felt with their own human family. And they tell me the reason they sense it is because it's in the telepathic communication, not in the facial features, because everything is telepathic. So we've just got to be really careful about our judgments when we really don't know enough to make judgments. A lot of the time, we just don't have enough information.
Okay, very well, Mary. Thank you for that. We'll get James in here momentarily. Do you know about any implants in people? Yes, and
actually the person that wrote the foreword for my book, Dr. Roger Lear, of course, has taken out, I think, about 15 now, his book, The Aliens and the Scalpel, and there's been silicon ones, there's been metallic ones, but interestingly, there's a mix about whether or not they are good or bad, and a lot of experiences have told me that they are there to assist them. They've assisted them with their psychic abilities for translating information. Some of them talk about the fact that it helps the beings to know where they are, and they feel protected by the beings. In fact, the gentleman I'm doing the foreword for at the moment, Simon Parks, feels they're very positive. But there are a lot of people that don't feel that, and Dr. Roger Lear has actually taken out implants with people that really wanted to get rid of them. Interestingly, some people have sneezed them out. Dr. Mack talks about that in his book Abduction. And sometimes they've had the implant because they sneezed it out, and then it just disappears. And sometimes I've heard that they've had them taken out, and then another one will be replaced. So there's a whole mix of understanding around what the implants are. There are some that I believe are energetic implants, information. So what I ask of people is, what is your feeling about yours? And sometimes we may need to go into a deep place for them to get an understanding of what that implant is and whether or not they still feel that's something that needs to be changed, moved, or altered in some way. And for some, that's exactly what they will do. So it really is about a unique perspective of your own understanding of your encounters and how you interpret them. And that is the model that I work with for every single person, is their understanding, their awareness, and how they, from that deeper level, wish to understand what's going on for them.
Okay, thank you for that. As you yourself are not an abductee or contactee, have you determined whether those who are, or this is just a question, I'm not sure if you are an abductee or contactee, I'm just going with the question here. Have you determined whether those who are can help each other understand all of this new information? I mean, can we learn from each other? I mean, the contactees.
Yeah. That's a really good one, Tim. And yes, I have got a number of what I call buddy groups around the country because there is a dearth of support. There are many UFO groups, amateur groups, but many of them are still interested in the sightings and the nuts and bolts, as I call it, of ufology. The ones with encounters don't always have, therapists or people that are prepared to listen to this because it's very confronting to a lot of people. So what I do is, as much as possible, when people get to a reasonably comfortable place with their own encounters or they want to talk to others, I connect them. I almost feel like I'm a kind of telephone interchange here where I connect those that want to share with other experiences. And I've got a buddy group in Melbourne. I've got other groups in other parts of the country. And basically, when they're ready, I will connect them to those other groups, and they email one another if they've had an encounter that night. They talk about it, they share it, and all of that supports them and also supports their understanding with each other. It's great to get confirmation that it's not just you, that other people have had that experience too, and they actually help each other to grow. And I think this is the way of the future, that as more and more people come out and share their encounters, they'll connect with other groups around the globe, and through that there'll be a continual growing and learning, and I think this is going to be the way of the future.
I believe so too. Has anyone made the connection between the Greys and the Dolphins? We look to outer space, but about inner space, the sea?
Absolutely, and it's a very good point. I've had two children, one of them 4, who told me that these little beings came to play with him at night, but he didn't like them touching him because they felt like dolphins. Interestingly, a 15-year-old child told me the same thing, that the skin felt like dolphins. And interestingly, this came out with Dr. Michael Wolff, who worked for the government, the US government, and met a lot of these aliens, although he said, I haven't met one that I didn't like. And he met them in these secret programs. And he did say that the feeling was of the skin that it felt like dolphins. And that is really a fascinating corroboration from small children, teenage children, and from someone who knows about the government interaction with some of these intelligences that's saying exactly the same thing. So I'm pretty certain, that what we have here is an intelligent species that lives in our oceans, and I think we have got to start realizing how amazing that is to know that.
I do believe so. There's so much out there that we do not know. That's very, very true. And we did bring James Gilliland with us. James, you there?
I'm here.
Great. You sound like you're talking through an old school tin can.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's Skype. I've got my sound all the way up.
Yeah, anything, we just blame Skype. That's just the way we do it here. Oh, you left your underwear on the floor. That's Skype, babe. Sorry. Great. Well, I just want to let our listeners know freedomslips.com is the website. Revolution Radio is what you're listening to. We are the Phenomenal E.T.s here tonight, going a little bit past 12. If we can, Mary, if that's okay with you, we have Mary Rodwell of ACERN. You can check out our website at acern.com.au, and we've invited James Gilliland of ESETI.org. You can check his website out as well. James, how's it going tonight?
Oh, it's going great. I'm just listening to Mary and fascinated at how, her information and my information is just totally back to back on a lot of this information and coming up with the same things, and especially concerning these felines and these lion beings, which I'm totally fascinated with. They're actually appearing here, or getting photographs of these beings. The children, I'm really fascinated by the children, and it would be so awesome to even just get an audio or some place where they could network and talk together and support each other, because I know that's such a missing element. And very few parents can even understand what's going on. So that is such a very important role to play here, in supporting these children coming in that are having these experiences.
Very well.
I absolutely agree, James. And hi again. It's lovely to have you on the line as well. Look, you would love to hear what some of the children are saying. I mean, this young boy told me about the pyramids, and that it was the cat people that he talked about that were there, that were building them, for example. And he's very connected to what he calls the lion and the cat people, as well as the manta. And you will be interested to know that he talks about his form when he's in human form going on the craft. And literally, part of him, he doesn't use the word soul, but it's like part of him leaves and goes and inhabits the manta form. And he said it's like he evaporates. And I sort of said, like steam. And he said, yes, like steam. And then I'm in the other form, he said, with his manta parents. This is incredibly profound. And, this is what the children understand. He even talks about going into other universes on pathways with the craft. And in other universes, he talks about some of the different kinds of artificial planets that are geometric, for example. And this is information that is really profound. And I said, how do you know this? He said, just because I know. Just because I know.
Yeah. Well, I would just, I'd give anything to sit down with a group of these kids and just, ask them, do the old talking stick. You just pass the stick, and whoever wants to talk, grabs the stick, and everybody's equal, and nobody's going to judge or talk down or just for once create a totally safe space for them to say, whatever that, talk about their experiences and whatever's on their mind.
I hope that this can happen, but at the moment it's still very scattered in terms of, the parents with their children, and most of them understandably they're still shocked to hear their children mention things like this, just like the parents when this young boy had never mentioned he saw energy fields to them before he came to see me. And interestingly, one of the things that I found fascinating was he kept looking at the clock. And I said to him, why do you keep looking at the clock? And he says, because time changes. So he's aware that sometimes he goes somewhere. And so he checks the clock to make absolutely certain that nothing's changed with the time. And he apparently looks in the mirror a lot. And his mother said, I used to do that. And I asked him why. And he said, to look at my wings, because his guardian, he says, has wings. So he's looking for his wings.
That's interesting. We're having actually monks, and it's happened here with some of the students that take the self-mastery classes, where they are phasing out and turning into like a vapor, where they change form and become something else, or just actually totally shift out of this dimension onto another one. And they're doing it by just, engaging their own consciousness and energy. It's not so much beaming up on a ship. I think they are the ship, and using their own, I don't know what you want to call it, using their own Merkaba or their own inner vehicle or whatever to go back and forth and taking it to a whole new level. And now we're having just an onslaught of these beings showing up here, and some are feline. They look like cat people. Some look like a panther, like a humanoid panther being, and the other ones look like a lion being. And what I found out is that it depends on the dimension that they're coming from. A lot of the seventh dimensional beings are lion beings, and they're very big, very, very tall beings. And then we've actually photographed the ones that have more of a head like a panther and a human, kind of a humanoid body. And we have photographs of the ones that are fifth dimensional, much more human looking, but more like a cat.
It's amazing, isn't it, that this is all now coming out. It's almost like there's a new openness to exploring some of the different kinds of beings. But what I'm also discovering is the understanding of their culture and their psyche through those that interact with the different beings. From the manta, for example, where this gentleman in England says his mother's a manta, and the understanding of the culture and the way they behave with each other. And he talks about going into the manta form on the craft where there are human children learning things with the mantas there, but he actually goes into a manta form and facilitates with the humans. So this is another aspect of our understanding of how, we can shift into these other forms once we, let go of the old ideas of how the soul operates and our belief systems, which are so archaic when in terms we don't really understand our multidimensional reality.
Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting too is that we had a monk here from Japan named Khan who teaches Qigong classes and a lot of different classes and comes here, just amazing. And he was doing that. He was shape-shifting and disappearing and reappearing, and he ends up in China accidentally and Korea. He hasn't got it perfected yet. But we have photographs of him actually doing that. But he's been getting photographs of masters appearing here, Christed masters, ancient masters showing up here at the ranch. Beautiful photographs of Mary and some Pleiadian beings, and he got the sixth-dimensional feline beings. Just amazing photographs by just raising his own energy up to where he can interface with them, and then he actually gets a photograph. So I don't understand the dynamics behind that, but I watched it happen personally and with other investigators there, and they checked and double-checked his camera, and a lot of it just did on his camera phone, which was even more bizarre. But I'm starting to put it all together and, connecting all the dots with the nature kingdom, the different ultra-dimensionals or off-world visitors, our ancient history. And as you said, the felines were very involved in the pyramids, and there's statues of them all over Egypt and the pyramids of humanoid feline beings. I have a lot of photographs of those as well.
James.
So it's all tying together now. It's all coming together, and I know I've just scratched the surface, basically.
No doubt. Can I ask you to hold that thought? And Mary, would you like to stay with us? We'd just like to take a station ID. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Great. All right, just stand back there, folks.
FreedomSlips.com. We are awake. We will not be deterred. We shall find the truth. Politics, New World Order, weather control, the systematic destruction of humanity is in progress, and we are preparing to stand tall, and we attempt to awake others. Please note, we are listener-supported, so click a banner, make a donation. I do not have sponsors or commercials to support my efforts. Now, stand by. You are being connected.
Thanks for that. We've got more questions here in the chat room, but continue your thought, James.
Well, I was just saying, back in '76, I was with the Tibetan Foundation, and some information came in, and they talked about the future, and they said, the universe is like one big puzzle, and it's all God, and it's all coming together. And I'm starting to realize what they said back in the '70s now is actually manifesting, where the veils between worlds are coming down, and we're seeing how they all interplay, with each other. and are all connected. It's just amazing watching this unfold and living here on a vortex. There's one more thing I want to share. I don't want to take over all the time here, but we had a certain talk show host. I won't mention his name, but he came up here and he went through a transpersonal release session of counseling, and we did, clearings with him and cleared up any past life and any unfinished business and any old traumas and wounds, childhood things. And his guide came in and gave her name, and she was from Orion. She was with the Orion Council of Light. And it was quite interesting that he went to another group later on, and in Sedona, Arizona, and I guess there's two women communicating, and they said a being came in and was coming in. He said it's a female, it's from Orion, and they gave him the exact same name. And then they told him, we met at the E.T.s Stargate, which was fascinating. He about fell out of his chair, because he's a very discerning person. I can't tell you who he is, but to me, validation's always great. I've always felt this was some kind of a vortex. I didn't really consider it a Stargate, but I guess that's what the higher beings call it. And the name was spelled out perfectly, the exact same name. So that's just another major verification that there is a lot of communication and a lot going on, in the unseen that a lot of us aren't aware of.
Great. Mary, this question is for you. Do you mind staying here for a little bit longer?
No, that's fine.
Okay, great. Maybe 15 minutes, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Okay. Does there appear to be any rhyme or reason behind who is being contacted? Certain traits such as IQ, family background, heck, blood type, anything that would be a reason why one person is chosen while so many others are not. I know you spoke about the DNA, but can you go into that further?
I think, you see, I'm on the same page, I think, very much with James. I think we're all being contacted, but for some of us, it's not quite so obvious. I think what these intelligences, these higher beings are doing is actually contacting human consciousness. And for some of us, as a soul, we've come in with, if you like, a plan how that's going to happen. And for some of us, it will be more confronting and traumatic, for example, like the abduction. For others, it would be like the Star Kid, that knowing and awareness. For some of us, it will be a lot more subtle. And it really just depends on how awake we are and how we're going to understand that connection. And I also feel that we're really waiting for the 100th monkey, the 10% of the planet that get it. And I think then that's going to shift everyone. So I don't think it's just specific people. I think specific people have certain soul mandates to help this planet. Like this little boy told me that not only could he understand what animals feel, but humans, and he was here to help humans and animals. Many of those that are coming in, like the Star Kids, know they've got a role to play. They've got some mission to perform, but they don't know what it is yet. And many people will relate to that. I've got something to do, but I've got no idea what it is. Well, I think their soul knows exactly what it is, and that when the time is right, they will have that flag pop up, and they will actually then start to understand the deeper nature of why they're here and what this is all about. So I don't think that there is really a separation, other than for each of us, our awakening will be different. And for some, it will be a lot more in your face. For others, it will be a different kind of, more subtle kind of awakening. This is about human consciousness. It's not about individuals. It's about all of us as a species waking up to who we really are.
Very well. Are there pictures of these feline beings?
Yes, I've got some on my presentations that the Reality of Contact is on YouTube, which is a 90-minute presentation that I did at Murdoch University some years ago. I've got the two Expressions DVDs. The first one has a lot of the different beings and drawings of the lion beings and other beings on it as well. But there's also other experiences and that have drawn different kinds of beings that they've interacted with. We're talking about a galaxy, universes of goodness knows how many different forms, both physical and non-physical, out there. But these are some of the more common ones that we come across, you know, from the humanoids right through to the cat-lion beings, right through to the manta beings, the reptilians, the greys, the many forms of greys that are out there as well, crystalline beings, geometric form beings, energy beings, light beings, you name it. I think whatever we can conceive is probably out there.
Very well. Thank you for that. James, did you, we don't have Mary for too much longer. Did you want to ask her anything? Did you want to get anything across to her?
Basically, I'm just fascinated. I was more of a listener tonight. I wasn't really planning on coming in, but I think she's just doing an amazing job, and the way she's very articulate in getting this out, and I think it's just amazing how it's all coming together right now. And I'm fascinated by these kids. I hopefully we can stay in contact and shoot some emails back and forth, because I'm just fascinated on hearing what these kids have to say, and maybe some way I do completely respect the parents' wishes, and I do think for safety's sake, and so they aren't bothered that, you know, so they can live a normal life, that maybe they should have their identities withheld and done, you know, with the real high integrity, you know, around this, on just getting the information out and creating a safe venue to do that. But I am really fascinated with what they have to say.
As I am too, and in my journey, I am still no longer skeptic that what I'm seeing is real, but I'm questioning why me and not my neighbor, and what is it that I have, and not too many of my relatives have seen them, although some of them have. I don't think any of them have been contactees. I don't think I have it in my blood. I'm not sure what it is. I just know that they're showing themselves to me, and I'm not sure why. So I guess you could say it's still up in the air with what they're trying to do with me.
Well, maybe, Tim, all they're waiting for you to do is ask them.
Oh, I've asked them. I've pleaded with them. I've told them I would do my laundry. I would make my bed. I told them I would do everything good by the book, and I still I believe, and the wife as well. She says, well, how come they're not coming as often as they have? And I think they have to show themselves to other people. They can't just be here putting on a show for us. They have to be elsewhere and getting the message out to others. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've got Tim, I've got a question for Mary too. Is that lately we had just crazy activity here all throughout the summer, but just recently it's really tapered off, and it's as if they're getting ready for something really big. They're not doing the dazzle duty so much anymore. It's tapered off quite a bit, and so you're not alone. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of telepathic contact going on. That's still happening. But as far as the ships appearing and doing their thing, it's almost come to a standstill. We still see them up high, you know, way up high. But as far as dropping down in and powering up and lighting up the field, they're just not doing that recently.
This question for Mary, before we let you go, what's the cycle of communication that these individuals engage in? Is it telepathic, you believe?
Yes, certainly. Not only do they get information when they go or are taken to other places, whether or not it's their planet of origin or on the craft or in their Merkaba as an out-of-body experience, but many of them now are getting telepathic downloads, and they will get these at night. A lot of them are explaining that, you know, that there's huge amounts of downloads going on, and I agree very much with James. I think something is in the wind. From what I can gather, there seems to be a lot of that kind of activity now, you know, in terms of information downloads, etc. And I think this is in preparation for something. Something, I believe, also is big. And it's a matter of almost like the lull before the storm. And it's like we're gearing up or waiting for some kind of gearing up for whatever it is that's going to manifest. So I think it's about hang on to your hat, because I think things are definitely going to go up another notch sooner rather than later.
Oh, I agree 100%. I know we've entered that 7th day of the 9th wave, in the Mayan calendar, and there's a massive time compression going on. And a lot of people aren't handling these energies very well. It's a lot of energy coming in, and things are manifesting very fast, and a lot of tough lessons coming up for people. And you can see it, in the outer world with all the social changes going on, and I think the Earth itself is going to start moving and rocking and rolling quite a bit, with these energies. But I know we've got, they're saying between now and October 28th or the 1st of November that we're going to have just monumental changes, and things are going to move real fast.
Yeah, same kind of date from me, actually, James.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm preparing for. I really am just, I know something's going up. I don't feel as I used to a year ago. And then again, I'm exploring more of what's out there. But there's something fishy going on, and everyone can speculate at the end of the day what it is. And we're just, I think it's about trying to bring peace together and trying to promote love and joy and bliss, and not trying to promote this war on terror and this war on your mind. And I think we had an assassination attempt to try to get us or Israel into Iran, and I think they're just trying to gear up for this whole war. And I think we need to stop it. And I think the message is out there. What do you believe, Mary?
I think, you're tapping into something really that the whole planet is tapping into that now. And I think that the important thing is not to buy into fear. There's a lot of fearmongers out there. This whole energy of this planet is run on fear at the moment. And I think we're being challenged to transcend that and to trust, that part of ourselves that knows that we're eternal and that we're okay as long as we trust within ourselves. And the more love and the more honouring that we can offer energetically around the planet in every level that we know is the way forward for us as a species.
Great. I believe that too. James, would you like to stay with us after the station ID till 12:30?
Sure. I guess, are you signing off, Mary?
Yeah, it looks like I'll be going shortly.
Okay,
well, you don't have to go. You could stay with us too. I didn't think that you wanted to stay past 12. I knew we had talked about 12, and it's up to you, really, Mary.
How much longer are you going on for?
I'm going on till 1 a.m., so everybody's more than welcome to stay. I know that your time is different than your time, and you got the day, the sun out, and everything. You can stay as long as you'd like.
Well, I can probably give you another 15 minutes.
Great. Okay, well, that's good. Then we'll hold out on the station ID, and we'll just continue with it. I'd like to add this in, though. ACERN, which is your what the company, not the organization that you founded. I'm trying to find the right words here. But ACERN, like ourselves, offers a specialist and unique services. It is a non-profit organization that does not receive government funding, and like Revolution Radio, is largely user-supported. Please check out their website at www.acern.com.au. There are interesting articles, artwork galleries, support groups, questionnaires, recommended books, recommended sites to visit. You can purchase Mary's book, Awakening, as well as her documentaries, Expression of the E.T. Contact, a visual blueprint, and Expressions of the E.T. Contact, a communication of healing blueprint. There are also meditation CDs available to purchase. ACERN graciously and gratefully accepts donations as well, so please visit them at www.acern.com.au. Have I done you justice?
Tim, you've been very, very kind. Thank you very much.
Well, I do owe it to my wife there. She is I am the puppet with the strings, and that's just the way it goes. I greatly appreciate it. And on your side of the globe, because here I am in Canada, how much government support are you getting? I know that Canada has released UFO files. What about your government? Are they supporting you in your work, or is they putting you on a,
Well, you've heard about the phrase, I'm sure, can pigs fly, or something like that? Well, yeah. I would probably be the last person in the world in Australia that I would be supported by the present government, to be blunt. We are so off the field of what's out there in terms of support. There's no chance. I think hell would have to freeze over if I believed in hell, that is. No, there's no support there as such. What I do is I do some counselling work, which, I use to support ACERN and the sale of my books and this kind of thing. But, ultimately, like James, really, it's really a labour of love, because when that poor guy that came to me all those years ago and said there's no support groups for this, everybody thinks you're a loony, I was devastated that there are people out there, hundreds of thousands of them, like this little 8-year-old that told me he thought he was going crazy. I can't, as a member of this planet, stand by and not offer what little I can in terms of my own skills to support those amazing people that are waking up and, that are our future and part of who we are as our future humanity, and walk away from supporting them at this crucial time in our evolution. So it's not even something that I can think of as walking away from. I believe, like I'm sure James does, that we have undertaken a mandate onto this planet. Not for me, not just being a mum and having 3 kids and 2 great grandkids, but also I've been given the skills to help and support, my human family. And so that's the deal. And, support or not, the main thing is that when I had the next person leave me saying that a weight has been taken from their shoulders and they feel different and better for having shared or, learned what they have, that's my bouquet. And I'm sure James knows exactly what that is your gold. And that's more than enough for me to keep me going, challenging the governments, challenging the mindset, challenging those that don't want to own the truth of this, challenging psychology, challenging everything that's stopping people have the respect of their personal reality, which is everyone's entitled to having personal reality. And this is a discrimination against the most important part of who we are, and that's our human experience.
Very true. James, you're getting a lot of support. I heard you, I don't know if you'd like to go on air. You went somewhere this week to fight the cause, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. We once again saw a total abandonment of the law. But, it's pretty amazing. It is, I can't really talk about it on the air.
Okay.
But
I didn't know how far you wanted to go with it. That's okay.
Yeah, it's the same old story. The powers that be would like to shut us down, and they've totally ignored every aspect of the law. They've ignored every constitutional principle you can imagine, and so it's just an ongoing thing, but we've got it under control. And it's going to have serious consequences on the other side. But that's about all I can say right now. Sometimes you can pull stunts for so long and you paint yourself into a corner, and then there's nowhere else to go, and that's kind of where it's at right now.
Well, I tip my hat off to folks like you and Mary who are getting the word out and who are basically validating a lot of our stories, because we do feel like nobody believes us, and we do feel like we're in a corner and we experience things that nobody else does. And yeah, okay, I'm crazy. I've accepted that. And I tell people, until when you've seen them, then you'll be crazy just like me. Because it's just a great experience, and I've gotten an overwhelming feeling and a lot of incentive to continue my research with extraterrestrial beings and the possible contact there. And I'm very occupied, and I think it's a positive movement for me in doing what I'm doing. I think I'm not hurting anybody, and I'm communicating in my own way with them, so I feel like I'm on the great path, and I just want that acknowledgement from groups like ECETI or ACERN that basically validate what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite interesting. You know, there's different types of law out there, and we've been kind of hoodwinked into believing that we are a slave race and slaves to the system, and that they do have power over us because they're really there to serve us. You know, even these corporations they created, or state corporations, or the American corporation, or whatever else. People forget that we're the beneficiaries. You know, we're not the employees. We're the beneficiaries, and they work for us. And it's coming down the pike now with a lot of very powerful people are coming forward with this information, you know, with legal precedents on it. And I think we are in the middle of a huge revolution. The people are just fed up with, you know, the just us system and the gross and even dispersal of wealth and just all the other things going on, the manufactured lack, and you know, people are fed up with it, and it's just not too long before this all collapses in on itself.
Yeah, they can't hold the lie too much longer. We did get this question here earlier, at least before the show, from my friend Paul in Australia. He lives in Melbourne. And he was speaking about a school in Melbourne in 1968. There was a girl who was abducted in Hawthorne. Do you know of this case, Mary?
I know of a case, a documentary done of Westall 66, where over 200 children plus teachers saw a craft and it was all hushed up. But I don't know about that particular case. That seems like that was a couple of years later. But it's interesting how there's been a number of schools. I mean, Dr. Mack actually investigated and did a documentary of some school children in Zimbabwe as well. And I think there was another school in Florida that had a similar thing happen, apparently, where a year later to the one at Westall. It's quite interesting, isn't it, that there's been these mass sightings, and yet very little is made of them in you know, the public arena. And again, it's, you know, the Westall one particularly near Melbourne was a huge case, but everything was literally covered up. And this was 200 children saw this craft, plus a teacher, at least one teacher.
Mary, I got a great one for you. Just recently, we actually got a photograph of it, too. My cameras were down at the time, unfortunately, but I think it was July 23rd. We had 4 brilliant ships, kind of a reddish pink, just like the one that flew over during the conference, that flew over the conference building. And they came in, formed a triangle as they flew in, and they lined up perfectly. And where they lined up is right over the school. They lined up over this other Jonah Ministries and the Baptist Church, like right above all 3 of them. And they sat there for about 10 or 15 minutes. Just an amazing display. Now, what's interesting is I went and I talked to some of these people, and a bunch of the local people saw it, and they're all excited about it. But the people that were aligned with the churches would not talk about it. I mean, it never happened. And they had a huge camp out that evening. It wasn't dark yet, and their whole field was full of campers and tents, and there's no way they could have missed it. But you would think just at least one of them would come over and go, hey, you know, what was that? Or even be curious about it or ask a question. But it's almost like because of fear of being ostracized or whatever, they haven't said a thing. But I thought that was great. I thought it was like full support of the work we're doing here, and kind of letting the people know that this is real, and doing it in a very non-threatening way.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, made my day. It was the day after my birthday. I asked for a visit, a nice close visit that everybody would see.
Great birthday present.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where does ACERN go from here? What are your next steps? What are you plans for the future?
Well, I've decided that the universe is going to dictate that to a certain extent, because I have plans, but I think the universe has another one. My main thing is just to be still available. I'm writing about the children at the moment. I'm also doing some forwards for some books. going and doing seminars, little public seminars, just to let people know this is real. All the stuff that I normally do to put out to the public about this as letting people know. But other than that, I'm waiting for the universe to show me the way forward, and I'm sure I will be led as I've been led by the nose for the last 18 years or however long it is I've been involved in this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm just starting my journey, so I hope that it can last that long, and I hope they continue communicating with me the way they have. And I'm just anxious to see what more is out there, and I believe that I'm just stuck in this box of either turning the key to go into a car or putting on shoes to walk, and I'm like, this is getting old. There's got to be other ways of communication and transportation. I mean, it's out there, it exists, and I know that there are civilizations out there way more advanced than us, and I'm waiting for my turn, to be honest. I don't want to discredit this life. I've enjoyed it. It's great, this physical life. I'm really happy with it, but I want to know if there is more out there, and I do believe that there is. I want to experience it.
Well, I've got one request of these amazing intelligences and these light beings and all these beautiful ancestors of mine. I really do want to be conscious of being invited on that spacecraft and taken around the cosmos just once while I'm fully aware of it. And it's not a very big request, I don't suspect, or at least I don't think it is. And I would really just like to do that, and with any luck, take my camera with me. So I've put that one out there. So if I suddenly am not available in the near future, you'll know that somebody's been listening.
No doubt.
Put in a good word.
For sure. Any last plugs for Mary? Do you want to mention any other websites that you're working with, or any last comments before we have to take a station ID and move on with the next show? Hey, hello.
Hello. Was that for James or myself?
Yeah, for you, Mary, yes.
All right. Look, go to my website for any information, for questionnaires or anything like that. You've been given that information. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Tim. I've really enjoyed your questions and the openness that you've had. Absolutely brilliant to hear James again and to have his input. Take care and blessings from Australia.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Before you do go, we got a call the last minute of the show. If you do want to take the call, I don't know the area code is 321. You're on the air.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good, very good. We were just about to wrap up the show. I guess you caught us by the bell there, just before the bell.
But they haven't been around lately for me the last 28 years. What I wanted to ask is tonight there was an upload on YouTube just about 5 hours ago stating from a Bill Murray that there's an asteroid that's going to hit the Earth on Monday. I just wondered if you guys got more connections than some of us out here that are trying to track all this down.
Well, that's
Maybe you guys can look into it?
That's a very good question. But where was that? On YouTube, what was the video name?
It was just uploaded 5 hours ago.
And what is it called?
Let me see. Got it. I put the link in the chat page.
Oh, can you repost that maybe? Here, I'm the Kids Got Hard in the chat room. Maybe if you repost that.
Right now, I'll paste it one more time, and I'm Woodtick Ray, and there it is right there.
Okay, great. So I'll keep that in mind, and yeah, there's definitely other people who can answer your question. I'm not privy to what this meteor impact on Monday. I have not the slightest clue. James, Mary, do you know anything about it?
No, I haven't heard about that yet.
Okay.
It just came out, and everyone's trying to track it down and see if this is legitimate or not.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything myself.
You've got a lot more strength than we do.
Yeah, no doubt.
But they did say something about Monday going down. I think it's more social economic, I hope. But they did say, and I guess that would be the 17th, isn't it?
YU-55 the next day on Tuesday.
17th is on. 17th would be the Sunday, I believe. 14. Oh, or 12:30. Okay, no. So, yeah, 17th is Monday, and then YU55 on the 18th. Francis's show that airs tomorrow, I think at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Collision Course. I think he's got a pretty good update for all his listeners. So that's something to tune in for. I can't speak on it, but I'll definitely look at the video afterwards.
Yeah, I'll look into that myself. I'll see if I can find out more information on it. But I know there's been a lot of diversions, a lot of things coming in that have been diverted, and they've been doing batting practice on quite a few asteroids.
Well, we've got the light beings to help us. I know that. They keep flashing me them 11-11s about every day and 12-12s.
Yeah. Just let me say that, that just because it's on YouTube doesn't make it real.
I know, you can't trust it. But I just, you look up the guy, he's legitimate, he used to work for JPL. But you don't know who uploaded it.
Right on. Thanks for the tip.
Alrighty.
Like Tim said, tune in tomorrow and tune in Saturday. We'll cover it on the news. If not then, we'll cover it on Monday for sure.
No doubt. Thanks for the call.
All right. Thanks.
Great.
Bye.
All right. So thank you, James, for joining us. James Gilliland of ECETI and Mary Rodwell of ACERN.com.au. Any last words?
Well, for me, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with everyone and for, again, reconnecting with James. It's been an absolute pleasure, so thank you very much.
Well,
Tim here. It's wonderful hearing from Mary again, and keep up the great work. An awesome show, Mary, and I guess we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely, James. Take care.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Mary Rodwell, and thank you, James.
All right, good night.
Great.
Good night.
Night.